This video tutorial will illustrate how to find the integration values of a proton 1D spectrum, as well as create a PostScript file output using the VNMRJ software. We will begin with a previously recorded proton spectrum of ethyltranscrotonate. You will want to make sure that the data has been properly phased. You can usually rely on the autophase utility invoked by typing the command APH. You may also want to automatically scale the spectrum by typing the command VSADJ for vertical scale adjust. After adjusting the spectrum, we'll begin finding the integration values by clicking the Show Integral Regions icon in the right toolbar. Now you will click Process, then Integration in the left side column. Now finally click Clear Integrals because we wish to select the integrals manually. Now using the center mouse wheel, scroll up or down to set the scale so that the integral line is completely visible in the interface. Now you will click Interactive Resets. Now using the left mouse button, select each peak by clicking to the left and to the right. Be sure to include the solvent peak and TMS, because everything that is not selected from this point forward will be considered noise. If we ignored the solvent peak and TMS, it would affect the baseline correction, since they would be falsely considered noise. If you make a mistake selecting each peak during this process, you can click Clear Integrals, then Interactive Resets once more to start over. Now we will execute a baseline correction by typing the command BC with the argument of 3. The argument corresponds to the order of the polynomial used for the baseline correction. For most cases, an argument of 3 or 4 will be sufficient, but if you have a very distorted baseline, you may need a higher order polynomial. It is important to keep in mind that smaller values like 3 or 4 generally produce very acceptable results. Now we will set the integration values by placing the cursor in the center of a resonance that you can assume the number of corresponding protons for. For example, in this spectrum of ethyltranscrotonate, we can assume that this resonance is caused by this position in ethyltranscrotonate, which we know has 1 proton. We can place the cursor in the center of this resonance and then set the integration value to 100 and click Set Integral Value. We could also place the cursor in any other resonance and follow the same procedure, setting the integral value accordingly. For example, we could place the cursor in the furthest upfield resonance here, which likely corresponds to a methyl moiety. Then we would set the integration value here to 300 to correspond to 3 protons of a methyl. The integration values are displayed here and should be very close to a ratio of 1 to 2 to 3 for 1 proton to 2 protons to 3 protons. As you can see here, we have a variance in numbers. The methyl groups should have an integration value close to 300, but they are actually 340 and 344. This could be because when setting up the parameters of this experiment, we did not wait long enough between transients while recording the data, and this is okay for simple molecules like ethyltranscrotonate. But for more complicated molecules, it is important to be careful when setting the times between scans. Now we can begin plotting the data by clicking Plot in the left side column. Check the box next to the title, Integration Values, then click Scaled and ppm. To only plot the spectrum with integration values, click None under the Parameter heading. You can also choose to plot experimental parameters alongside the spectrum by clicking Basic or All. At this point, you can choose to print the plotted spectrum if you have printers set up correctly by clicking the Print button, or you can save the data to a PDF file by first clicking File, then Autosave, then Preview. This will generate a PDF file that you can then save in any file format you wish by clicking File, Save a Copy, and then changing the file extension to .ps for a PostScript file, .pdf, etc. You can also email yourself a copy of the plotted spectra by checking the box next to email and entering the email you would like to send the plotted spectra to.